Well, hello, my name is Katie Silva, and I am the Director of Development at the Rivard Report. And we are an all digital nonprofit news organization that covers the San Antonio metro area. Um, Fail fast, learn faster is a saying that we really took to heart during the Accelerator, and we've really grown our membership base, implementing incremental improvements through quick tests. I'm part of a business team of 5, and it has really been meaningful working together to improve our conversion rates with a test and learn philosophy. And we value extensive testing. And when we find something that's not working, we quickly try something else. So while our hypothesis may be driven by instinct, outcome analysis is always driven by data. And as a result, we have a much better understanding of our membership pipeline. So while we participated in the Accelerator, we had 3 main takeaways. We invested in top of funnel activities by advertising our newsletter products on Facebook, Twitter, Google, LinkedIn, and we found it was much more economical to advertise our newsletter with like a 2%, $2 per acquisition rate versus our membership. And then once we got those folks in our newsletters, we would send them highly targeted appeals through customization and segmentation to ultimately convert them to be paying members. And then a key factor of test and learn culture is A/B testing, and we test copy, button colors, photos, anything and everything worth refining. So our growth, as we have for the first time in our history, surpassed 2,000 individual members, which was very exciting. And this was a big year for us. So you'll notice on the graphic list, there's both individual and business member growth there. For the sake of this conversation, I'm going to focus on the individual member growth. And the reason why we were able to surpass 2,000 individual members is due in large part to a series of sprint membership campaigns that we did this year, particularly around the COVID-19 crisis and information needs, and then also our ability to maintain a high retention rate through stewardship practices. So you'll see our retention rate is around 69%, which is something we really work on as well. So I am going to talk about what we've been up to lately, the 2 campaigns that really contributed to our membership growth. The first one I'll mention is we had a COVID-19 sprint campaign and Givingtuesday Now, both managed by our stellar membership manager, Cassie Kelly. So I'm going to give her a little shout out there. So the COVID-19 campaign was a 5-day sprint fundraiser we did in April, and we had an original goal of raising 20,000, and we raised 30,000, surpassing our goal by 50%. And the messaging really focused on information needs and really an honest acknowledgement that our newsroom was losing advertising and sponsorship revenue, so there was a greater need for individual support. We also participated in Givingtuesday Now, another kind of really short mini campaign, and Givingtuesday Now was on May 5th, and we raised over $4,500 with that. How do we do it? So we were able to surpass our fundraising goal by curating email appeals and really segmenting with targeting. So usually we segment by members, lapsed members, and non-members, and have specific language to those 3 groups. And then we also acted quickly when we realized that we were hitting our campaign goal midway through the campaign, and decided to publicize and test a reach goal. So we were like, okay, we hit 20,000, yay! Now let's see if we can reach 30. And I'm not kidding you, we had someone donate $1,000 around midnight, like the night the campaign ended. And there's a number of really fun things that were a result of saying, like, you know what, let's go for that reach goal. And that was exciting. And one other thing that I want to mention is that was mostly email appeals, how we raised those funds, but we did also launch a website Modal that was so successful that we left it running beyond the campaign, and it has raised just over $9,000. So we left that running for about a month. And then the Givingtuesday Now, the Global Day of Giving on May 5, we launched a 3-day sprint, including the day before and a day after. And we primarily used newsletter toppers. So we included appeals within our daily newsletter which has included a topper with using MailChimp's merge tag and really curated the language and raised just over $4,500. So we have some fun with testing too. We've joked around in the past. It's much easier to raise money for cute animals and kids as opposed to public service journalism. So my colleagues and I thought it would be fun to A/B test fundraising appeal with a traditional headshot to accompany the appeal, and then also a pet portrait. So here is our health reporter, Rosanna Garza, with her dog Pepe. And we are surprised the dog portrait received more donations. But I will mention that we tried this with our managing editor, Graham, and myself, with headshot, standalone headshot, and then headshot with our dog, and those were inconclusive. So not all tests. we have some fun with it, but not that one I would say is inconclusive. One other thing I would like to mention quickly is that, as the title of the presentation states, we do occasionally fail and make mistakes, and those mistakes can be reversed. For example, we launched a pop-up on our website following our successful COVID-19 sprint campaign, and the pop-up accidentally blocked much of our site content. It was thanking our readers and letting them know we reached our goal, and many of our readers and members thought we had launched a paywall and sent us a bunch of angry emails. And immediately, our chief operating officer and our membership manager jumped into action and called and emailed those folks who sent us angry emails to apologize and let them know it was a design mistake, and our site will remain free and accessible to all. And not only did everyone, were fully understanding, but we had a number of those angry folks turn around and increase their membership donation. So it was kind of a lesson in acknowledge your mistakes, let them, and move forward. And I think some positive things can come out of that. Yeah. And that's my presentation. Thank you all for listening.
Great, Katie. Anyone have questions for Katie just off of that, thinking about sprint campaigns and how you react to mistakes, so to speak, or things that don't go the way you planned? Katie, there's a tool in the chat. What tool are you using for modals?
We originally used Opt-in Monster. Yes, Opt-in Monster, and that was really great for A/B testing. Opt-in Monster has built-in analytics. Now we updated our website. We have a Newspack website with Google, and they have a built-in tool that we use. So I would recommend starting with Opt-in Monster. We can't use Opt-in Monster as much because it requires us to turn off AMP, which slows down our site a little bit. So we've been playing around with this new Newspack pop-up tool.
What is Opt-in Monster? What does it do?
Opt-in Monster allows you to deploy inline and pop-up modals on your site to solicit donations or newsletter signups. You can curate the language. What's also really great about Opt-in Monster is you can A/B test your language. So talking about testing, you tested different copy, different images, different button color, all of that.
And it's super cheap.
Yes, it's very affordable.
Don't forget that, inexpensive. We've seen that across a lot of Accelerator publishers, actually even overseas, that have gone and just getting something up. And I think one thing that Katie really hit on there that's a key lesson is getting something up and moving is far, far, far better than getting something perfect, or what we used to call right. Getting it right is often a stand-in for never doing it. So they've been really agile in getting those sorts of tests up and running, and do a really nice job of it. So congrats to everyone down there at Rivard. Any other questions for Katie?
We've also found, just a quick note on Opt-in Monster, we found that it's pretty user-friendly. A lot easier to use than some of the other pop-up tools we had tried.
Beautiful. All right. Miss Tracy, in Berkeley side with 3 E's. In Berkeley, but representing city
Berkeley
side.
With 3 E's.
Berkeley with 3 E's, but city side with just one.
Can you go back one slide, please, David? Just to the very beginning. I think that was, thank you. Hi, everybody. So yes, I'm Tracy. I'm the editorial director of the newly formed nonprofit Cityside, which is the parent organization for both Berkeley Side, which I co-founded going on 11 years ago, and our brand new launch, the Oakland Side, which is literally went live Monday. So we have 2 local news websites here in the Bay Area now, Berkeleyside and Oaklanside, the Oaklanside. And I thought I'd focus today on what we've been doing around membership very recently, just since the pandemic hit. So the Accelerator project, we were members of the Accelerator, I think, a couple of years ago. Really got a ton out of it. If I had to distill what the 3 things that really where we really benefited and got value was we've had a membership campaign for a program for going on 8 years, but this just really put it on steroids in terms of helping us refine it and think a lot more strategically around what we were doing around membership. It also just gave us this incredible cohort of like-minded local news publishers with whom we now are in regular contact. It's a fantastic group. We share best practice. We talk to each other on Slack. We we sort of commiserate when things aren't going so well. It's been a fantastic part of this whole experience. And we were working with the News Revenue Hub before we started with the Facebook Accelerator, but thanks to the grant that we got through the Accelerator, we were able to ramp up with them and get a lot more services from them, and that was incredibly helpful. And if I was going to say, if I was going to sum up the one thing that our takeaway from the Accelerator is that when it comes to membership, more is more. You cannot ask enough. That was our sort of, and every time you worry about asking too much, you just have to ask. You just have to go ahead and do it. So when the pandemic hit, we went into sort of overdrive. We took a 3-pronged approach. We launched a major donor campaign, which was where we called it the Rapid Response Newsroom. We actually started reporting on Oakland early. Our fledgling Oakland news team, who were just sort of preparing to launch a news site, just got to work and started reporting. They reported through Berkeleyside initially because that was the only platform they had. And just the sort of information that we were pumping out and the resources and the updates, I think we were already seeing a spike in membership, completely unprompted, but we had this great, so we leveraged that. We just went ahead and asked people, and we got the major donor campaign itself just brought in 112,000, but we ramped up member solicitations considerably. I think we were literally doing one every weekend. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the third strategy, which is newsletters. Newsletters is our single most important activity in terms of top of the funnel. We are constantly working on getting our subscriber numbers up on our newsletters. We also, just for 8 weeks, we did a pop-up newsletter. It was a little bit of an opportunistic, completely sort of, I would say it wasn't very particularly well thought out, but I personally felt that we just needed a newsletter to talk about the good things that were happening during this crisis and these dark times. So I launched a newsletter called Best of Times and the Worst of Times, and it focused on how the community was pulling together and the great things that people were doing in the community to help each other out. It was uplifting. It was a feel-good newsletter, and I think it was incredibly well received. We put some money behind promoting our newsletters to get more signups. That was mainly through Facebook spend. We introduced what's called inline CTAs. So within every story that we published, we now have really beautiful sign-up boxes for our newsletters, and that coincided with the timing wise. We started that just before the pandemic, and so our results were pretty astounding. I mean, just since February, we've gone from 19,500 on our full list to well over 23,500. And sort of focusing now on membership, which of course was the sort of the core area that the Accelerator did focus on. As I mentioned earlier, we did every weekend, we would do an email to both non-members, to existing members, asking them to chip in more, and we would send it out. Editors would write them, myself, other editors, sometimes reporters as well. They had definitely had a personal voice. We'd send them out every Saturday or Sunday. We'd send it again the next day to everybody who hadn't opened it. And then we would do what we call fake forwards, which is a sort of cynical term, but it's a good way, a good sort of tool that we found where I, for example, would send an email saying, hey, I hope you saw this email from my colleague Lance, it's just sort of top the email that went out already with a sort of a forward, just to sort of remind people to take a look at it. And that strange thing on the slide that you see on the left in the tiny type is what we unfortunately call our money bot. It's an automated Slack channel which shows members coming in real time. And you can see that we had this moment with our very first email appeal after COVID, where we just had this slew of new members coming in. And they also, which is particularly nice, we have a prompt where they tell us why they're becoming members. So to have that sort of affirmation of the, people loving what we were doing and appreciating us is really fantastic as well as the money, obviously. So this is the result. We had a tremendous growth in our members in the last couple of months. You can see those numbers on the right. We're now we're over, actually I'm not even seeing this slide, so I can't, let me see if I can okay, there we go. So yeah, we just between September and February, our member growth was, chugging along, about 200 members. And then February to May, it went from 2,800 to just under 4,000. And in 1 month alone, we brought in 72,000 in member revenue. So, that we were really incredibly pleased with that result. And we're still seeing actually that it's definitely quietened down. We're not seeing that pace anymore, but there's still just a really great steady flow of new members coming in. And I put it down to this idea that you can't ask enough, that you have to keep reminding people. But it also obviously is based on a foundation of really solid journalism that people are appreciating. So we're now well over 4,000 members, which is a goal that we had, set ourselves for, I think, the end of this year. And so we're well ahead of our annual goal. Our revenue year to date is 49% above what we budgeted, so 217,000. And but the Oakland side, which launched, as I say, this week, I'm happy to say this slide deck was, I think, made a couple of days ago, and we had 160 members sign up for the Oakland side specifically before Monday's launch. But I checked this morning and we are well north of 300 members now, just 2 days later. So we're feeling really encouraged by the support we're getting from our readers.
Tracey, we have a question for you. Kate Luby, do you want to unmute yourself and ask it?
Sure. Tracey, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about whether you're seeing more people come in as one-time donors or being willing to commit to monthly giving, and how you're reflecting that monthly revenue in your total numbers that you just described.
Mm-hmm. So our definition of a recurring is anybody who gives monthly, and a member is anybody who gives anything in 1 year, in one 365-day period. So that's the sort of how we define members. We set up the giving or the ask, the donation sort of pages to try and direct people to monthly, because obviously that's the holy grail. We want everybody to be monthly if they can. We have it set, for example, to the default is $15 a month. But obviously people can do one time, and they do. I haven't analyzed this closely, but I think there does seem to be a correlation with these big spikes of people just doing one time rather than monthly. But I think, we get about 50-50, I would say, at a rough guess, 50%. But what we do is we're set up to, to try and convert those one-timers to monthly as well.
So when you talk about being 49% over budget currently, Are you reflecting that those monthly donors over the course of the balance of the year, or just what they've given so far?
So it's 49% over what we had budgeted. Does that make sense?
She's asking, so like, is that cash in the bank already? You're already 50% past, or projecting?
Oh yes. No, that's cash in the bank.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Great.
So that will continue to accrue, right? As those new members continue to attribute, you'll get a longer lead even as time goes on.
I think I'm right in saying that, but I'm sure one of my colleagues will correct me in the chat if they're watching, and I've got that wrong.
Right, and we would describe that broadly as maximizing the return under all parts of the demand curve. Right, you're going to hear from Wisconsin Watch later about their major donor program. So they're at one end, right? Small number, big checks, where people giving $10 for your campaign, right? And how do you make sure that you're set up to capture all of that? And how do you structure your ask so that you're making sure that you're getting your whales to be whales and taking your $10 where you can get $10, right? That's you'll just see that through each of these presentations is like, how do you set up a suite of products that like help you capture each of those points? If any of the other panelists want to jump in on that, please do, about how you think about that, separating sort of your, one-time donors, recurring, and major. Otherwise, no problem. Any other questions for Tracey? Tracey, any other points you wanted to make before we move on?
No, I mean, just that, the challenge now is always the case is to keep those members. We've had this great success in bringing them on board. We need to retain them. So that's what we're working on next. And I think it's really just a question of being very organized in terms of reminders, to renew, and also being in touch with them. We have a monthly newsletter to our members. We have a closed Facebook group that what we call the Berkshire Insiders, so people feel that they can chat with our reporters. All of these things we hope help retention.
Over to you, Tanner Curl, the Min Post.
Yes. Hello. Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody. I'll just say that a lot of the takeaways my other peers have been talking about, we also experienced at Min. Probably our way over the course of the Accelerator was just to be a lot more aggressive with asks, kind of dovetailing off of what Tracey was talking about. So over the last 18 months, we've been much more aggressive, sending a higher frequency of asks, particularly with email. We view that as like our number one channel for donations coming in. I don't have this on my slides, but I did look that over the last 18 months, we've grown our membership by 40%. So at the beginning of 2019, we were at 3,500 members, and actually just this past weekend, we crossed the 5,000 member mark. So we have viewed that as being successful. Mara, can you go ahead and you can go to the next slide? Yeah, so who have we been asking in that time? On the left, probably too small to see, but this is our newsletter sign up page on the site. And the top 5 options there are all newsletters. They're actual news products. And then we also allow people to opt into receiving promotional emails about membership and our events. And as of this May, this last month, that was about 14,000 non-members who said, yeah, go ahead, send me promotional emails. And obviously we encourage people to do that because we want to ask them. But it's been, it has meant that we've been limited in who we're asking directly with longer form or email appeals. So that takes us to who haven't we been asking? So this is the group at the top. These are people who receive our daily newsletter, our weekly wrap-up, our DC memo, et cetera. And particularly looking at the people in that group who are 4- and 5-star rated in MailChimp, indicated to be high engagement, read often, click often. We have both referral and loyalty newsletters. But they are not, there are about 5,000 non-members who are not opted in to receiving those promotional emails. So they're not getting these longer form appeals from us. I will say we do put appeals in all of our newsletters around the journalism. And we have some success there, but we don't think it has quite the impact that our longer form appeals have. And so the reason we've been reluctant to push further on that is I think we're just wary of annoying or angering our most loyal readers and not being sure how do we gauge, what the right balance there is. Will we anger people? Will we know that we've crossed the line until we've actually done so? So we've debated a lot. We decided we got to just test this out. We got to try something. So earlier in May of this year, it happened to be on Givingtuesday Now, but it was part of a larger sort of week-long statewide charitable campaign here in Minnesota called Give at Home, and then was part of our kind of annual big day of giving, but they did a special sort of pandemic focused. So on the left, this is an email appeal we had set for May 5th, Giving Tuesday. You can see this was actually written by one of our reporters, and is actually a little bit longer form than we usually send out for email appeals. But we legitimately, we do not ghostwrite these. We have our reporters write them themselves and work with them a little bit on it, give them help where we can. But they are, I'm happy to say, very good writers, and probably shocked at how good they are at writing fundraising appeals. So we sent this to our usual pool of those 14,000 non-member prospects, but also put together a version that we then sent to our 4- and 5-star rated contacts as well. Exact same versions on each side. So you can go to the next slide, and I can give it just a little bit of a report. So the left-hand side, these are the people who opted into promos. That was 14,000 emails. Of that May 5th email, we had about 3,000 and some odd change open it, 82 clicked, 6 unsubscribed. For the non-opted in, but they're highly engaged newsletter subscribers, there were 5,000 emails. About a little over half opened it. We had 58 clicks throughout, and then 15 unsubscribes. We don't have a direct, we do try to code in so we can see they clicked this link in this email, and then we saw a donation in our CRM. It's not 100% consistent, but if you can click through to the next slide, I'll show just a comparison. We sent several emails throughout over this week-long period. That May 5th one was where we sent the 2, and you can see a pretty significant jump in donations there. So we think there's good results. Our kind of takeaways, honestly, we're having a little bit of internal debate whether 15 unsubscribes is what our threshold for unsubscribes are, or what factors do we look at to make sure we're not annoying people or losing loyal subscribers who are otherwise stay engaged with the journalism that we provide. But obviously, see, there's quite a bit of potential there. Those highly engaged newsletter subscribers are prime people to support our work in whatever way and whatever level they can. So we are going to push on this a little bit more and test further and do more.
Awesome, Tanner. Questions for Tanner, friends?
I have a question. I'm wondering, we recently started, in the past, anytime somebody made a donation, so became a member, we automatically subscribed them to our newsletter list. So they immediately started getting emails from us. And we just stopped doing that and asked people to opt into receiving newsletter. And I'm just wondering if anybody else, panelists or others in this conversation, have experience doing that, what their takeaway was, that if it's been tested, is it a good idea or not? The reason that we decided to do that was we were worried about people who became members, started getting emails from us and unsubscribed from the emails and from the newsletter, and then we could not go back and solicit them again. So I'm just wondering about comments about that.
I can't say that we've tested it. We've always asked when people join or become members or donate, we ask them as part of our flow. After they've completed the transaction and the money is in, we then ask, here are our newsletters. Okay. Yes. We don't ask them to do, until we have the credit card confirmed, we don't ask them to do anything else with us, but we do ask them to opt in, or encourage them to opt in, I should say.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And at Wisconsin Watch, we automatically subscribe everyone. But in the Welcome series, we then offer the option for them to choose which newsletters they're subscribed to so they can change their preferences. And we encourage them to change our preferences or change their preferences before they just unsubscribe.
Now, among major metro newspapers, the number one thing that predicts whether you're going to stay as a subscriber is how frequently you come to the site. And the number one thing that predicts how frequently you come to the site is how many newsletter subscriptions do you have. So, I mean, this is kind of a point of life or death for some level of your retention and churn. Like that's not that is worthy of your time and effort to get that flow straightened out and figuring out where those things go, because so many things happen downstream from that. And Stacy, who's coming to us while walking through the woods of Vermont, which is beautiful. Stacy, hello, Stacy Peters, suggested putting a checkbox on your flow, maybe pre-check, depending on where you are in the world, whether that's legal or not, to have people sort of just pass by that and have that be a part of your registration flow, as Tanner said as well. So good recommendation there. Let's keep going. We're gonna go to Sierra, who is in North Carolina, the great state of North Carolina, at Scalawag Magazine, a movement journalism organization, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And she's going to tell us about their virtual events and how they sharpen their outreach through them in this really trying time. So Sierra, take it away.
Hello, everyone. As David said, I'm Sierra Hinton, and I'm the Executive Director Publisher at Scalawag. For those that don't know us, Scalawag is a journalism and storytelling organization that illuminates dissent, unsettles dominant narratives, pursues justice and liberation, and stands in solidarity with marginalized people and communities in the South. We're a regional publication based in Durham, North Carolina, and we're in our 6th year. We're a Black-led, predominantly POC and queer, and an all-woman team. We can go to the next slide. So we are currently in the membership accelerator. To date, most of our focus has been on testing around events, as well as testing around our value proposition and just being more explicit about the work that we do across site. And today I want to focus in on the work that we've done around events. David, you can go to the next slide. So at Scalawag, we launched our membership program last July, thanks to support from the Membership Puzzle Project. And a big part of membership for us has been events. And when we started, our hypothesis was just that if we had more in-person touch points with our readers, we would see a more diverse audience. Audience diversification was very important for us because our team has been going through a big period of transition. And so we went from being a white-led organization to, like I said, being a Black-led, predominantly POC organization. So it was important for us that our audience reflected the demographics of our team. And so we saw membership and starting a membership program and events as a way to diversify our audience. So we started having events last year, in-person events, but when COVID reached the US, we immediately pivoted to doing virtual events. We did a series of 4 events. 3 were free and open to anyone, and 1 was a member exclusive event. We had never done virtual events before this point, so we used, much like Katie, the agile product development. We used agile product development thinking to embark on this like virtual event journey, so that we were constantly learning and getting better with each new event. So with each new iteration of the sprint, we tested different things. We figured out that, it was some of the things that we tested. So we figured out that it's never too soon to ask someone to become a member, and you can never ask too much. At the first event, which was a panel on workers' rights and organizing in the South during COVID, we only asked folks to become a member during the event. And we found that the ask got lost just in all of the conversation and everything that was happening. And so for the next event, which was a panel on rent strikes and housing protection during COVID, we started asking multiple times throughout the event versus just at the end. And then by event 3, which was a poetry reading that centered Black and other folks of color and queer folks, we were asking before the event, during the event, and after the event. We also, with that event, tested a member exclusive space to see if having access to that perk and promoting it ahead of time got more folks to become members. And so I'll talk about the results of that a little later. Another thing we did is get serious about conversion. We've always paid attention to how many folks registered for our event versus attended our event. But with this sprint that we did, we really drilled down on that. And so instead of having like a Facebook event and running our event sign up through Eventbrite, because we were doing our virtual event via Zoom, we built an on-site event landing page and put the Zoom sign up link on there. And that way we could see how many people were coming to that page and viewing the event as we were promoting it. And from there, like how many people actually registered, and then how many people attended, and what that conversion looked like as folks were moving down the funnel. And then you can also see that we did a number of other things. We did an email campaign to follow up with attendees and folks who registered. And then we also did surveys at the end of each event to find out some demographic information, if folks feel like the event added value to their lives, and membership status. And I want to highlight membership status in particular, because for us, we were really interested to see if, especially as we thought about virtual events and whether they would continue to be a part of our offerings post-COVID, if that's ever even a thing. So we really wanted to know, are events a good strategy for member acquisition, member retention, or both? So we can go to the next slide. So these were some of our results and what we started to see. So before, like I said, when we were just promoting our in-person events via Facebook, and then having folks sign up for through Eventbrite, and then looking at event attendance, we were able to come up with conversion rates, but they didn't really feel rooted in a way that made us confident about those conversion rates. And so by moving to an on-site page, we were able to see that 508 people visited that site, and that page on our site, and that 36% of the people who visited then registered for the event. And we had 61% of the folks who registered actually attend. So we were able to get much more clear about how folks were moving through the funnel, and how we might then drive more folks to sign up next time, so that we can land at the attendance outcome that we wanted to see. for offering a exclusive member space. We saw that 8 people became members before the actual event, and then 8 people actually attended. So what we saw there was that like an exclusive member space was not something that excited folks who were already members, but it was a way to capture folks who were not yet members and get them excited about becoming a member and joining. We also saw that what we had been seeing during our in-person events, which is that the folks who attended our in-person events, the demographics of those folks were more diverse than our readership previously. Yeah, we do have a virtual event tomorrow. Thank you. We saw that the audience was more diverse, and that continued to be true with these virtual events. And our survey, we also, at our in-person events, we really focused in on race and ethnicity, but we asked all kinds of questions in our survey for this virtual event around demographics, including folks' professions, because it's also important for us to be targeting working class folks with our work. And we also saw that the number of members per week went up. So before, our passive acquisition per week was around 3 people, but with virtual events, we saw around 10 people per week becoming members. And that has grown even more thanks to some of the other things that we have done through the Membership Accelerator. You can head to the next slide. So some more results. We saw that 35.5% more non-white audiences filled out our post-event survey than our newsletter survey. Our surveys are the main way that we track audience demographics, so it was very exciting for us to see more non-white folks filling out our survey and giving us input so that we can be responsive to their needs and be using that to drive our content. We saw a 233% increase in the number of member conversions during the week of the event. So again, that sounds like a big percentage, but really what we're saying is like it went from like 2 people to like 10 people. And then as a part of the survey, we also asked folks if they were interested in learning more about becoming a member if they were not already a member. And so we were able to generate 17 leads from that, which and at the time I think led to 1 conversion, and we've seen more since then. And those were personal follow-ups. So we emailed folks and said, hey, you said you were interested in membership on this survey. Can we talk to you more about membership?
Hey friends, I just want to note real quick, I've not been a good moderator. This is my fault that we have 4 minutes left in this session, and our friend Lauren has not gotten to give us her thing. So Mara, could you just advance this to the other things to consider? Because I think, Sierra, I was just looking ahead of yours. Yeah, things to consider, just if people could read that while I just ask you one quick question, Sierra, which is, you all do a lot with poetry, art, music, like lots of things that I think kind of the like, we have to be official journalism people would be like, that's not us. Like, why is that important to the community? Like, why is that so important to the work that you all do?
Yeah, I think for us as like Black folks and folks of color, our communities have always found ways other than the written word to express ourselves and to spread news and information. And so we know that like arts and other forms of media beyond journalism, we can still get folks engaged and share news and information with them that way, and not just through like traditional forms of journalism.
Right. We'll make sure everyone gets her Sierra's deck also, because there's a lot of good stuff in there just of how they think about it. And if you check out that event that I threw in the chat, they're doing one tomorrow. So if you want to see it in person, chip in something, and you see a really fascinating, really creative news organization action. They're really great. I don't know if you guys got this pop up on your screen, but we've left my dear friend Lauren in Wisconsin 2 whole minutes. And again, that is my fault, and I apologize to everyone for not being able to do that. But Lauren, give us the facts, girl. What do people need to know about big dollar, the whales, the big dollar donors? And we'll figure out a way to get people to get questions to you offline.
That's fine. Well, a lot of what I'm sharing has already been shared by other members of the panel. So let's see, Mara, go to the next one. Takeaways from the Membership Accelerator. Wisconsin Watch is a statewide nonprofit. We do primarily investigative reporting and major investigative reports. So on average, we're publishing about 2 major reports every single month. So we do things a little bit differently than other news organizations, and our membership program follows that same model. So through the Membership Accelerator, we were able to pivot from really focusing on our distribution network, which was our primary focus for our first 5 to 10 years of operation. And now we're really trying to switch to that owned audience, and the Facebook Membership Accelerator helped us do that. Go to the next one. Springs at Wisconsin Watch are all about events. We have public events like speakeasy events. You can go to the next slide. And we did this speakeasy event using Crowdcast, which is great because you're able to get analytics and you're able to collect information on who's attending, so that we're able to get them into our donor flow. You can go to the next one. Next. And we sent out a survey to try to collect as much information so that we're able to refine as we